What's up, guys? I'm Bob Tompkins with the Living in SC team at Real Broker, and welcome back to the channel. On today's episode of Living in SC, we're going to be talking about what to expect when buying a home in South Carolina. Now, if you're a home seller, pay attention to this video as well, because there may be some very helpful tips for you on how to deal with buyers in today's market. And before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you're thinking about moving to the area or you have a home to sell in South Carolina, shoot us an email at info@livinginsc.com and we'll be happy to connect with you and help you along with your home buying or selling. Now, let's get right into it. What to expect when buying a home in South Carolina. The first thing you need to expect when buying a home in South Carolina is competition. South Carolina right now is a state that is seeing incredible competition. For example, in Greenville County, which is one of the counties that I serve, 65% of home buyers in 2021 were actually out of state transplants. Now, what this means, in a typical market, you're gonna have a lot of buying and selling of people that live in that local market, maybe a little bit of people migrating to the area, but 65% is absurd. For that many people to be moving from out of state or from a different region of the state into the county, that is extremely high. Adding to this competition problem, virtually no one is moving out of Greenville County. Now, this same problem actually applies to a lot of different counties across the state, such as Charleston County, Lexington and Richland County in the middle of the state, also York County and those that are just below Charlotte. This great sort of migration to South Carolina is creating a situation where you need to expect competition. That means when you're bidding on homes, there will be multiple offers. You will likely have to offer over asking price, and you'll have to do some special things with your agent to make sure you can get a home. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. If you watch the national news, if you pay attention to different media outlets, you know that the real estate market in the US is kind of shifting to a more balanced market. The thing is that's nationally. South Carolina, seeing so much incoming traffic, is feeling way less of this shift than the average American state. You may say, but Bob, interest rates are going up. Prices can't keep doing what they're doing. Now, I will say in our market, we're starting to see prices kind of level out, but the fact of the matter is interest rates are where they are wherever you live. And then when we talk about interest rates, it's the same interest rate no matter where you buy in the country. So it's not like you can move to one state and get a lower rate than you can somewhere else. So if you're thinking about moving, it's the same 6% in California as it is in South Carolina, but home prices being what they are in South Carolina, that 6% rate is going to accrue a lot less interest here than it would in higher priced markets. Now, in my opinion, that's enough talk about competition, but you just need to know that when you're moving to the state, you should expect competition, even though the national media is telling you that the market is leveling. In places where people want to move, that is less of the case. Now, the second thing to expect when buying a home in South Carolina is inspections. Now, with inspections, there's a couple things that I want to cover with you guys. If you're familiar with South Carolina real estate law at all, you would know that we used to have a standard repair procedure in our contracts. That has recently changed, and we are now what's called a due diligence state. Now, I don't want to get too much into what this means, but a due diligence state when it comes to inspections means when you write an offer on a home, you're gonna put a certain amount of money up as a termination fee to the seller. The buyer and the seller agree on this number before they go under contract, and the buyer has the right to inspect, ask for repairs, whatever. The seller also has the right to reject or accept any of those repairs that the buyer asked for. And if an agreement cannot be met, that termination fee is delivered from the buyer to the seller. So the buyer has the right to walk away for really just about any reason that they want. But if they're not able to meet that agreement with the seller, whatever that predetermined termination fee is given over to the seller. This is important when you're writing a contract to understand that it does play into the competition and who's gonna win that offer, because obviously a larger number on that termination fee is gonna be more appealing to a seller. But also you don't wanna get that number too large, because if there is a problem with the house that you're uncomfortable with, you don't wanna be giving away a huge chunk of change to the seller. Now, that can sound a bit scary if you're thinking about buying in the state, but one thing that is important to know is that South Carolina is also a seller disclosed state, which means the seller has a legal responsibility to disclose anything and everything that they know about that house that is a material fact. There are other states that are called a buyer beware state, which means the seller doesn't have to tell you anything. That is not the case in South Carolina. Legally, if the seller knows of a problem with a home, they have to disclose that up front. So then you're able to offer an appropriate amount in that termination fee, do your inspections, and then make decisions accordingly moving forward. So you may be wondering, with that due diligence period and your inspections, what problems may you run into? Well, in South Carolina, there is one problem that we do see quite a bit, and that's moisture issues. Now, I don't just mean because of humidity in the air or because of rain, but South Carolina kind of actually sits in this middle ground between the northern states and then your kind of tropical states of South Georgia and Florida. Now, in that, we kind of say we're almost the tropics. With that, we have really high soil moisture. We do get a fair amount of rain, and then in the summers, humidity levels in the air can get relatively high. When you combine all three of these things, we can run into some moisture issues. Now, moisture issues are not something that you typically see on a slab-built house, but they are fairly common in basements and crawl spaces. Moisture underneath a house can actually wreak havoc, and it's one of the biggest things that I stress with my buyers when we're looking at a home is we want to make sure the underneath of that house is dry or has a system in place to help keep it dry. That may be a moisture barrier, a sump pump, a dehumidifier, or some combination of all three. It is important, if you're looking at homes with crawl spaces, to pay very close attention to them, because that moisture can be a big problem and can lead to problems in the future. So that's definitely something you want to be on the lookout for. Now, with my third thing to expect when purchasing a home in South Carolina, this is gonna sound a lot more uplifting than the first two, and that is taxes. Now, I know taxes don't sound like a super sexy thing or a very appealing thing, but the fact of the matter is, wherever you're moving from, it's likely a lot lower here than where you're coming from. So what should you expect with taxes? Now, in South Carolina, if you're buying around a $200,000 home, you should expect roughly $1,000 in taxes annually. Now, that is for a primary residence, and that number can be a little higher or a little lower depending on the county you're in. But as far as a ballpark figure, if you expect about $1,000 in annual taxes for every $200,000 of home you're purchasing, you're likely gonna be in the right place ballpark wise. So if you're buying a $400,000 house, expect around $2,000 in annual taxes. Of course, for most people, that is far better than where they're coming from. I've had some clients from the New Jersey area actually pay tax bills around $10,000 to $11,000 per year. So if you're moving from an area like that, South Carolina's tax bill on homes is extremely affordable. Again, if you're looking at something that's like $200,000 to $400,000, you're gonna be in like $1,000 to $2,000 tax bill per year. So really, the taxes here are much more affordable. Now, that's a very short list of what to expect when moving to South Carolina. So if you have any other questions or would like to have a conversation with us about what purchasing looks like here, shoot us an email at info@livinginsc.com and we'd be more than happy to help. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Living in SC. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, check out some of our other videos, and we'll see you next time on Living in SC.